We all have default psychological settings, but treating your personality traits like static labels from a quiz is a strategic error. They function as resource allocation systems. If you push the wrong system too hard, the gears eventually break. Chronic exhaustion and career friction usually happen when you deploy a psychological framework that doesn't match your current environment. Look at modern hustle culture. It demands you adopt high-output, aggressive traits, even if those behaviors directly conflict with your natural baseline. The trade-off is concrete. You might see a short-term spike in your metrics, but forcing an incompatible operating system leads to a deepening energy deficit and eventual exhaustion. This chart maps where the breakdown happens. High mental energy burn with low goal alignment lands you in the top left friction zone. Escaping requires an audit. We'll sort 9 personality archetypes into 3 operational zones: energy, risk, and action. Understanding how you operate within these zones helps engineer a daily routine you can actually sustain, rather than fighting your own nature every morning. This first matrix tracks how you process social bandwidth and recover mental resources. For the introvert, leaning into solitude allows for rapid energy recharge and deep, active observation. The trade-off is the risk of being mislabeled as antisocial. Introverts also face a high cognitive cost when forced to vocalize ideas instantly in fast-paced teams. The extrovert runs on different inputs. Engaging in constant group interaction yields instant confidence and the ability to build networks quickly. However, they often develop a reliance on external validation. Put an extrovert in extended isolation and their energy battery drains. The ambivert uses situational shape-shifting to adapt to varying social demands, but constantly calibrating to a room requires a heavy cognitive load. They also risk losing personal boundaries by always adjusting to fit the environment. Understanding your energy archetype allows you to pinpoint exactly where your internal battery drains and protect your baseline. Next, we look at how you filter information and anticipate failure. This is the risk management matrix. The optimist focuses on possibilities. This generates high resilience, continuous momentum, and raises team morale. The trade-off is a blindness to catastrophic risks. Optimists tend to ignore harsh realities until a failure is unavoidable. The pessimist prioritizes worst-case scenario analysis. This creates a defensive strategy that stops predictable failures before they happen. The cost is emotional armoring. That negative filter can actively kill viable, high-reward opportunities. The realist relies on evidence and probable outcomes. They strip emotion from the process, leading to dependable decision-making. The liability here is a lack of vision. Realists are often constrained by the status quo, which makes disruptive leaps unlikely. Relying solely on your default risk profile leads to predictable failures, missed opportunities, or completely stagnant results. The final category evaluates the mechanics of how you execute your work. This is the action and output matrix. The workaholic ties self-worth to constant productivity, which yields a high volume of output and professional praise. But the inability to mentally disconnect leads to physical burnout and sacrifices the quality of your non-work life. The perfectionist holds every task to a flawless standard, resulting in elite, detail-oriented deliverables. The consequence is severe launch delays. Perfectionists often find themselves caught in a cycle of diminishing returns, where the final polish costs more in time than it adds in value. This is the law of diminishing returns in action. You end up wasting 80% of your time agonizing over the final 5% of the project. The minimalist aggressively culls clutter to create intentionality and peace. However, they risk under-resourcing complex projects. Toxic productivity traits are often celebrated, but minimalism demonstrates that cutting low ROI tasks is more effective than simply working harder on the wrong things. No single archetype is a winning strategy on its own. Success comes from recognizing your baseline and borrowing traits from other archetypes to counter your specific blind spots. We map your friction points using this decision tree. It starts by asking, where is your primary struggle? It splits into energy drain, decision paralysis, and execution bottleneck. If hitting an execution bottleneck, a workaholic or perfectionist must actively borrow minimalist frameworks to move forward. This requires a trade-off. You must allow some output to merely be good enough in exchange for recovered sanity and project momentum. If you are stuck in decision paralysis, an optimist must force a partnership with a cautious pessimist or realist. The trade-off is comfort. The optimist must sit through critical feedback and accept constraints to build a strategy that actually works. Stop letting external pressures dictate which archetype is best. Audit your environment, calculate the trade-offs you are willing to make, and select the operational style that serves your goals.